What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel for another episode in the Ask Me Anything series. Feels really good to say that. I know it's been quite a while since I've last uploaded. I've had a pretty busy month of April so far. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, you might have seen that I went on a week or so long trip to Montreal with a buddy of mine, saw my first NHL game, had a really good time, and basically right when we got back, it was WrestleMania weekend, so over the weekend, hung out with the boys, had some drinks, and enjoyed WrestleMania. But I'm excited to get back into the swing of things as we're now really in the closing stretch of the regular season, just a couple more weeks to go. The Red Wings have basically a playoff game tonight against Washington. Heavy playoff implications on the line. This is probably the biggest Red Wings game that has ever happened since I started making videos, which is pretty crazy. So I'm super pumped for that and just really excited to get back on the grind and make videos for you guys. So with that all being said, I guess I'll stop wasting your guys' time and we can start off this episode with the first question from Mikey Schwartz, who says, do you think that John Tortorella is a little bit burnt out? And do you see the Flyers making the playoffs this year? Torts keeps bashing the team and just looks tired. So do the Flyers. As a Flyers fan, I don't really see a scenario where they make the playoffs, but I would like your input and also appreciate the kind words. Philadelphia has definitely been scuffling as of late. I believe they've lost 7 in a row up until this point. The Eastern Conference wildcard race is just insane. You have 5 teams really fighting for those final 2 spots, third place in the Metro and that second wildcard spot. Those teams being the Islanders, Red Wings, Penguins, Capitals, and Flyers. Philly definitely chose a terrible time to go on their worst losing streak of the season, but like in all reality, if you look at this season, like if you were just to not watch any of the Flyers this year and you saw at the end of the season that they just missed the playoffs by a couple of points, I think there would be a lot of people surprised by that. Heading into this season, the Philadelphia Flyers weren't really a team that a lot of people expected to be in the hunt for a playoff spot, and not only have they been in the hunt all season long, for the most part of this season, they held on to the number 3 seed in the Metro. Whether they make the playoffs or not, if you're a Flyers fan, I feel like you still have to be pretty proud of the effort the team has put forth all season long, and I do feel like John Tortorella has done a really good job with this team, even though, like you said, he might look tired right now and has been bashing the team a lot lately. That's just who John Tortorella is, especially, coaching a team that's currently on a 7-game losing streak. He's not going to be a happy guy. No matter what happens these last couple of weeks, I think this season has been a massive success for the Philadelphia Flyers. They've been competitive all season long, in the mix for a playoff spot, and they still could end up making it. A lot of guys on that team having a career year, especially defensively. Nick Seeler having a great season, earned himself an extension. Sean Walker had a career year and was able to land the Flyers a first-round draft pick. Before his injury, defensively, Ristolainen looked the best that he's looked in a long time. Lots to be excited about if you're a Philadelphia Flyers fan. This is an organization that also still has one of the highest upside NHL-affiliated prospects in Matvei Michkov, who I know a lot of Flyers fans are super excited about. This is an organization that, in my opinion, is definitely headed in the right direction, and overall, I think Danny Briere has done a really good job since taking over as Flyers GM. The next question we have comes from Sam Collins, who says, what happened in fantasy? So yeah, I've been kind of giving fantasy hockey updates throughout the year in these videos, and I'm actually currently in the championship week. I made it all the way to the finals. I am playing the 1 seed, a guy who had just a ridiculous team, unreal fantasy year, so I'm the underdog for sure, but so far through a couple of days, I am up by 20 points, but he does have a lot more games remaining, so we'll see what happens. I'll definitely update you guys in a week or so once my fantasy hockey season is over, but pretty happy with how my team performed this year for sure. This is actually the first year I've even made it to the finals in this league I have with me and my buddies. I think it's the 6th year of it, so it's about time. Moving along now, this next question comes from the big MW Oz, who says, is the Gensel trade looking good for both sides now? Bunting looks like he is just what the Pens needed. Could this hot streak going into the playoffs cause them to go deep if they make it? I'll tell you what, if the Penguins end up making the playoffs, Kyle Dubas is going to look like a genius, getting all those assets for Jake Gensel, who is a pending UFA, and then they go on this hot streak and still end up making the playoffs. That would be a huge win for the Penguins. Sidney Crosby has been absolutely playing out of his mind over these last couple of weeks, just willing the Penguins back into this wildcard race. They were able to secure a point last night in an overtime loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs, so they're currently tied with the Red Wings, who are in that second wildcard spot with 84 points, but Detroit does have a game in hand. As far as Michael Bunting goes, I think he has been a really good fit in Pittsburgh. He's the kind of player that I feel like will almost fit anywhere. Like, you can plug him into any lineup and he's going to contribute. He's a solid forechecker, high energy, high motor guy, and he's proven in the past that he can do really well playing next to superstars. He played a lot with Marner and Matthews in Toronto. Bunting isn't a guy that's going to really drive the play on his own line, but he's a really solid complementary player that does well next to stars, and we're seeing that in Pittsburgh. Jake Gensel has been playing out of his mind in Carolina, 21 points in 14 games for them so far. He looks like he's exactly what they needed, so overall, it's still really early, but this trade is definitely looking really strong for both sides. This next question comes from Gordon Devils, who says, do you think the Devils will trade for a goalie this offseason or roll with Allen, who has been really good since coming to New Jersey? This is a good question. Jake Allen has definitely looked pretty solid in his 10 games so far with the Devils. I'm a fan of Allen. I think he's a solid goaltender and has proven to be, a good option in kind of a 1A, 1B type of situation. If you're the Devils, a team that heading into next season, I think is still going to have Stanley Cup aspirations, despite the fact that this year has kind of been a disaster. Like, they were one of the best teams in the NHL last year. They upset the Rangers, or I guess maybe some people don't even call it an upset in the playoffs last year. But basically where I'm going with this is Jake Allen good enough to be, a starting goaltender on a Stanley Cup winning team? As much as I think he is, a really solid goaltender, I'm not so sure. So I do feel like the Devils are probably still going to look to add a goaltender in the offseason, whether it's somebody, on a similar level to Jake Allen that can kind of play in a tandem role with him, or maybe they go big game hunting and revisit the possibility of a Markstrom trade. Continuing on now, this next question comes from Josh Name, who says, who do you think was the most helpful trade deadline acquisition come playoff time? I'm guessing you kind of mean so far, now that we are just a few weeks away from the trade deadline. Obviously, the trade that we just talked about, Gensel for Bunting, has worked out well for both sides up until this point. Another trade that has turned out really well so far is the Lightning acquiring Anthony Duclair from the San Jose Sharks for really pennies on the dollar. He has given them some much needed depth scoring in the middle six. He's got 11 points in 13 games, and since the trade deadline, the Lightning have played pretty well and have done a good job of separating themselves from the rest of the pack. They have that second wildcard spot in the East locked up. So just off the top of my head, I think those are definitely the first two trades that come to mind as ones that have aged really well, although we haven't even gotten to the playoffs yet. Things can definitely change, and guys that haven't maybe fit in well with their new team so far can have one big playoff series and all of a sudden the trade looks like a steal. This next question comes from Pock on Twitter, who says, not hockey related, but what was your match of the night for both night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania? To be honest, I know it's kind of a boring answer, but I think I gotta go with the main events of both nights. I think they both lived up to the hype and then some. The tag match on night 1 was like 45 minutes long. The Rock looked great. The outcome of that match set up night 2 absolutely beautifully. I will also give an honorable mention to Sami Zayn and Gunther. I thought that was a really cool moment. Sami Zayn winning the IC title. And then night 2, obviously, again, the main event. That was probably one of the greatest, probably the greatest match main event that I have ever seen in my life as a wrestling fan. Just pretty much my entire childhood, Cena, Undertaker, The Shield, all of it just colliding in one match and then getting the epic payoff of Cody winning. Unbelievable moment, unbelievable WrestleMania. I had a really good time watching it. The next question we have comes from OG Toby, who says, thoughts on Gustav Nyquist having a career year? 1000% one of the most underrated players in the NHL this year, in my opinion. He has been such a huge get for the Nashville Predators. At 34 years old, I'd be lying if I said I expected this from him, but man, what a signing he has turned out to be for Nashville. 71 points in 78 games. The Nashville Predators free agency from last offseason, even though it's just been, one regular season, looks unreal. Nyquist popping off. Ryan O'Reilly has fit like a glove as well, and it seems like Barry Trotz's whole thing of wanting to kind of change the identity of the team by buying out Matt Duchene and also trading away Ryan Johansson and then signing guys like Nyquist and O'Reilly has really paid off, and the Nashville Predators have had a great season. This next question comes from Miles Stewart, who says, of the teams with a realistic chance, where would you most like to see Celebrini land? For me, it definitely has to be San Jose. As long as he goes to the Western Conference, I'm cool. Don't want to see Celebrini letting up the Red Wings more than once or twice a year. Obviously, with the Blackhawks already getting Bedard, I don't really want to see him go there, and I think the Sharks could use him a little bit more than Anaheim could, so my pick would have to be San Jose. This next question comes from Max Talon, who says, I saw that you went to a Canadiens game in Montreal not long ago. Was it your first time at the Bell Center / in Montreal? How did you enjoy the game in the city? So it wasn't actually my first time in Montreal. I went there before, but it was a long time ago. It was actually my first NHL game, so also first at the Bell Center, of course, and it was an unreal atmosphere. My buddy who I was there with was a Florida fan, and it was Florida versus Montreal, and unfortunately for him, Florida kind of got waxed in that game. But man, being there at the Bell Center, especially that late in the season, you would not know that Montreal wasn't anywhere close to a playoff spot because the atmosphere was electric. Had an absolute blast. Loved everything about it except paying like $45 for 3 beers. That was the one downside. The next question we have comes from the GOAT195, who says, who do you think had the best comeback season? This is a good question, and this is something that I also wish the NHL would make an award for, same as I wish they would make an award for the most most improved player like the NBA has. I guess you can kind of say that Bill Masterson is the NHL's version of this, comeback player award. But to answer your question, the first player that came to my mind, honestly, Jonathan Drouin signed a 1-year, basically league min contract with the Colorado Avalanche. A lot of people figured that this may be his last chance in the NHL, and he's having his best season he's had in a very long time. He's tied for a career high in points with 53. He's got some games left to break that career high. I bet on him doing it. So it's been really nice to see his career resurgence in Colorado. Another name that comes to mind, Thatcher Demko, battled injury last season and just didn't look like himself when he was playing. He's bounced back in a big way this season. When healthy, he's been one of the best goalies in the league, so I think he'd be another solid candidate. Great question though, and I'd be interested to hear your guys' answers to this. So let me know down below in the comments, who do you think is the NHL's comeback player of the year this season? And now finally finishing out the video with a question from Hatcher Kane, who says, which teams in the East do you see getting those final 2 playoff spots? I think the Islanders are going to hold on to 3rd place in the Metro, so I'll go with them for one of those spots. And for that final wildcard spot, I kind of honestly want to say Pittsburgh. Like, it just feels like Crosby is going to find a way to will this team in. Obviously, as a Red Wings fan, I want to say the Red Wings, and they're in control of their own destiny right now. If they just win the rest of their games, they're going to make it. But based off of what I've seen from the Red Wings over the last month and a half, I'm not all that confident in that happening. I trust a team like Pittsburgh, who's, a lot more battle-tested and knows what it takes to win a lot more than this Red Wings core does. So I'm going to go with the Islanders and Penguins here. So that is going to wrap up this episode of the Ask Me Anything series. Like I always say, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to every single one of you that took the time to come up with a question and send it in, whether it was on the community post on YouTube or send it in on Twitter. Even if your question wasn't featured in the video, just know I read every single one, and I really do appreciate all of you guys. These interactive videos are by far my favorite videos to make. If you guys enjoyed this episode and you want another one next week, then be sure to leave this video a like. That's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all again soon.